Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we will listen and learn about the novel of Kamen writer Kuuga to see what happened after the main series. 13 years have passed since Godai Yusuke fought against the strange creatures called the Gurongi tribe. He suddenly disappeared. On the streets, rumors about the Gurongi appeared and then disappeared, as if nothing had happened. However, Ichijo Kaoru is still pursuing the Gurongi, and when he learns about posts about a white warrior on the internet, he immediately remembers Godai. The novel was written by the main scriptwriter Arakawa Naruhisa and was published on June 28, 2013. Chapter 4. As night fell, Sugita returned from an investigation related to a separate case, and they began a meeting to devise a strategy. Pinned on the whiteboard in the room was a photo of Togai Brin with a charming smile. The stark contrast between the sophisticated demeanor in the serious face and the innocence in the smiling face was just one of her alluring features. The more they looked, the more they suspected whether she was a Gurongi. But she's so cute. Mika responded with annoyance to Sugita's comment. Don't underestimate someone just because of their pretty face, Chief Sugita. Just look at her. Oh, look, she looks genuinely terrifying now. Oh, that's because You're mistaken, Natsum. Ichijo calmly interjected. Based on our experience with Gurongi, we've identified many unique characteristics based on their appearance and behavior. For example, finding bloodstains on the walls in their lair, discovering dolls adorned with bizarre accessories, and the most serious case, they've eaten our police dog. And without exception, their eyes are always cold. Eyes devoid of warm blood flowing in their veins like ours, so it's hard to believe that such a smile would belong to a Gurongi. But didn't you agree with that hypothesis? She's been in contact with all the victims, all of whom died in the order they came into contact with her, even related to Togai Brin if it's the order of the victims. Mika then fell silent for a moment but then lifted her head and continued without hesitation. To be honest, I want to shoot a bullet through her right now. As she muttered those words, her face turned dreadful. For a girl whose father was killed by Gurongi, the difficulty in restraining her hatred was completely understandable. But Ichijo sensed the darkness lurking behind her eyes, immediately reproaching her. You're going too far, Natsum. Although you've gathered a lot of indirect evidence, there's nothing directly proving that Togai Brin is an unidentified life form. All your speculation is meaningless. I'm not sure if we can afford to be leisurely like this anymore. Contrary to her usual demeanor, Mika retorted. Just then, Sugita spoke up. She's got a point. Honestly, I'm a bit worried too. If Togai Brin is indeed a Gurongi, the game might start from here. Don't tell me you think so too, Sugita, what do you mean? Seeing Ichijo's confusion, Sugita rubbed his bald head and began to explain. This is just what I heard from my daughter's boyfriend, but apparently there's another version of the song Secret Signal on a different independent label, which was the original version of this song. Another version? Yes, Ichijo-san. Before Togai Brin made her official debut, she released Secret Signal under her own label for testing. But it exceeded expectations, so she immediately went to major record labels and... Mika said. The official release of Secret Signal had changes in lyrics and musical arrangement, right? Yes, sir. The red green gold part of the song wasn't in it. Mika said. So that means, the events up until now weren't actual actions but just experiments? Exactly. If that's the case, I feel like we can't take our eyes off this matter. Sugita said. Before Ichijo was a newspaper clipping from a sports magazine. An article about Togai Brin's upcoming concert. Sunday, 8 p.m., go. The headline appeared along with an image of Rin dancing energetically. In a small box were detailed information about Rin's first large-scale concert, which she always cared deeply about being able to interact with her fans. Because the concert was scheduled to start unusually early at 8 a.m., Rin requested that the number of fans be limited to 32,805 people. She felt that was a reasonable number. This idea, along with the keyword sunny, 8 o'clock GO, originated from her first debut. On her blog, 32805, her first entry included the following. When Rin wakes up in the morning, she always remembers to admire the clear blue sky. If it rains, Rin imagines a blue sky in her heart. Every morning at 8 o'clock, Rin prays for everyone's happiness. So, like every day, let's go. And that's why the keyword will be sunny. 8 o'clock GO. It's a bit long, so let's shorten it to a number. 32805, what about it? That's right, now you understand why Rin named her blog like that. Now, even though it's just the beginning, Rin will make that number her goal, so let's cheer for Rin everyone. Now that everything's settled, let's gather 32,805 people for Rin's first concert. Yua. I'm so excited. After Mika showed Ichijo the blog online, he once again fell into confusion. It was so different from the Gurongi of the past. It seemed Sugida's unease was also increasing, as he spoke while looking through the documents Mika had prepared about Togai Brin. Togai Brin, real name Yamano Manami. This name was registered in the census and has a birth certificate. If we assume that the president of Nikakin Company is truly a Gurongi, then it means they've switched places at some point. In that case, Rin might still be herself at the time of writing this. It's possible. Mika muttered with a lonely tone. But just then Ichijo cut in with no. And at this point, she must have become a Gurongi, for sure, Mika said. What makes you say that? The number, sir. The number? 32805? Ah. So Natsum realized it too? Yes, it seems like that number is indeed meaningful. Huh? This number, 32,805? Yes, sir. Let's try converting this decimal number to base 9. Oh, base 9. And how do you know? First, we divide the number by 9 and take the remainder as the first digit. Then divide it by 9 again and take the remainder as the second digit. Then divide it by 9 again. Oh no, just tell me the result. Sugita said. Yes, sir, 32805 in base 9 is 50,000. That's indeed a very intriguing number for Gurongi. Yes. Basically, the Gurongi replaced Rin at the time of her debut, and she announced how many victims there are in the game. Ichijo then put on a very serious expression as he turned to speak to Sugita. In Nakata's case, there's still no convincing evidence showing that Gurongi replaced him. But after assuming that Togai Brin is a Gurongi, based on the information collected and reasoned up to now, the likelihood of the game starting at the concert 3 days from now is quite high. By that time, we need to confirm Togai Brin as a Gurongi and apprehend or eliminate her by any means. But this number is really large. Clearly, this Gurongi has no intention of revealing themselves easily like 13 years ago. But Togai Brin has been interacting with fans as a Gurongi for a few years now. Gurongi should be completely incompatible with humans. For what purpose? Huh? Do you think she's planning something? To answer Mika's question, Ichijo seemed to be searching for an answer. I don't like saying it out loud, but it seems like she's planning a mass slaughter. Very likely to achieve her ultimate goal. Both Mika and Sugita remained silent for a moment. Sugita clenched his lips bitterly, while Mika didn't hide her rage and muttered, gripping her fist tightly. "I won't let that happen. But at this rate, the worst-case scenario is that we won't be able to do anything." Ichijo lowered his gaze slightly. Indeed. For police officers who thought they would never have to fight unidentified life forms again, a large barrier had appeared that had not existed 13 years ago. The DPKXD law has been amended. The DPKXD law. Originally, it existed to deal with the sudden appearance of unidentified life forms, allowing regular police to use heavy weapons and specialized weapons. It was established for emergency situations as follows. This law exists to help cope with attacks from unidentified life forms appearing in Japan on January 30th, the 12th of the Great Harmony, 2000. DPKXD stands for the Unidentified Life Forms Countermeasures Act. Definition of unidentified life forms. 1. The term unidentified life forms refers to creatures that appeared in the Kurotage ruins on January 29, 2000, containing gemstones inside them, allowing them to transform biological cells, their shapes into various forms with many characteristics of different species of plants. They are codenamed Unidentified Life Form Number X, where X is the sequential order they were discovered and verified. Unidentified life forms taking on human forms with stolen identities to conceal their true identities are classified as Group B, and are designated as Unidentified Life Form Number BX. 2. Unidentified life forms are different creatures from us humans. Therefore, when dealing with their acts of slaughter and other crimes, any similarities with humans must be disregarded and considered as wild animals. 9. Use of weapons. 1. Alongside members of the defense force, police officers are authorized to use weapons judiciously when other members of the force require support to protect lives, health, and use optimal weapons to carry out missions based on informed judgment. 2. The use of weapons against unidentified life forms will be handled based on the current situation. In these cases, it is extremely important to consider the dangers of causing harm to others or creating chaos when using these weapons. This law allows police officers to use newly developed weapons to combat unidentified life forms when necessary and permits firing at individuals with human forms if they are confirmed to be unidentified life forms. Under this law, Ichijo and the officers can confront and eliminate unidentified life forms with the assistance of Number 4, Godaiusuk. After the death of Number 0, the law was deemed to have achieved its purpose, but it remained in effect to prevent any necessary eventualities. However, 8 years later, as public memories of unidentified life forms began to fade, the law was amended under unusual circumstances. Specifically, a suspect was mistakenly identified as an unidentified life form and shot dead. The suspect was later found to be human during the investigation, causing the police officer who shot him to feel guilty and ultimately commit suicide. After a member of the legal team expressed concerns, the law was amended. Supporting these changes was a human rights organization. Since Gurongi possess bodies and intelligence similar to humans, there was an opinion that such creatures could adjust their behavior to human societal standards and efforts should be made to rehabilitate them reasonably. Perhaps because of this perspective proposed as the series was nearing its end and final piece was returning, support for the law treating them as humans was significant. The ruling party at the time acknowledged the voices and proceeded to amend the law. Therefore, the cabinet decided that the contents of Section 9(2) would be abolished, with the provisions expected to expire at 12 p.m. on April 16, 2008. The terms were adjusted as follows. 2. Regarding the use of weapons against unidentified life forms, it shall only be carried out under the command of a superior officer at the scene, who shall make appropriate judgments based on the current situation. The superior officer is responsible for understanding the dangers of causing harm to others or creating chaos in situations where weapons may become uncontrollable. 3. Regarding the use of weapons, it shall only be used when an unidentified life form has a form different from humans. Furthermore, even if they have a form different from humans, the use of weapons is only permitted when danger is imminent or in emergency situations. Otherwise, under any circumstances, they cannot be harmed. Oh my, that law surely saved us before it was amended. Sugita stirred up distant memories. He was talking to Ichijo, but also informing Mika. If we didn't have a shred of humanity left, we still wouldn't be able to shoot if they looked human. Even the special forces haven't done that in over 30 years. It's unimaginable here in Japan. It's like someone handing you a 6-inch snake on a movie set and telling you to shoot it right away. It may not be perfect, but back then, we could handle it by the law if we determined that a human was an unidentified life form. But now, we're bound by that law. Gurongi were once extremely ferocious and inhumane, meaning they could change forms instantly and attack others when the police arrived. Superiors were often very eager to order their neutralization. Once an unidentified life form was confirmed, the right to shoot wouldn't change even if they unintentionally reverted to human form. For this reason, Ichijo was able to freely shoot the woman with the rose tattoo, number B1. Anyway, tomorrow you both have to personally meet with Togai Brin. I strongly doubt the enemy will flee and hide. I'll go see the superiors and request them to recognize this as an official investigation and ask for additional officers to support us. Perhaps we should consider pausing the concert, and we'll need to come up with a legitimate reason to persuade Togai Brin to withdraw from the stage. Do you agree, sir? Mika suggested. Sugita stared at Mika sternly and replied. Listen, I understand you're worried, but being overly aggressive at this time will only backfire. I feel there's a strong pressure behind this investigation of unidentified life forms. Ichijo immediately reacted. The Nakata director's body, right? Yes, that's certainly part of it, but I feel like there's something else out there while I'm investigating other matters. Like some anonymous presence operating in the shadows. It's a bit far-fetched, but I'm sure there's something out there. A massive, mysterious presence. Anyway, so far, this isn't even a murder case. The best thing now is to find a way to corner Togai Brin into a tight spot and force her to reveal the identity of the unidentified life form. Then shoot her with nerve system destroying bullets. Oh, right, the production of those bullets. Before that, I asked Kaneda to make some unofficial purchases. She said she would produce new versions for us. In such a short time? The old ones didn't work on number 46, remember? After listening back then, it seems she came up with a draft to enhance their power. Unfortunately, the final project was terminated, but now she sees this as an opportunity to revive it. She's really reliable. Mika leaned forward excitedly. Mr. Ichijo, then I'll contact the fire department headquarters. The fire department? Yes, the fire department headquarters is located at the Cebu Dome Stadium in Tokorozawa City. They perform a lot of firework displays and stunts there during baseball events, so at least they should know about the rehearsal process at the concert. While chatting, Mika immediately returned to her desk and began contacting various places. See? My eyes didn't fail me. It was right to involve that girl in this matter. Sugita said proudly as he nudged Ichijo's elbow lightly. Indeed, Mika had been keen on Togai Brin from the early stages of the investigation. She paid attention to things others wouldn't notice and showed impressive perseverance in pursuing them. She even managed to get Mr. Matsukura to cooperate intelligently, ultimately almost proving conclusively that Togai Brin was an unidentified life form. If they had been just a few days slower in realizing that truth, over 30,000 people might have missed their chance to be saved. Sometimes Natsume can be a bit authoritarian, but I have to admit I was quite surprised by her abilities. Seeing Ichijo easily admit that, Sugita added. Actually, at first, the higher-ups planned to transfer her to Boston for study abroad, but at the last minute, she requested to be transferred here. You know, maybe because she's very perceptive. For a police inspector, intuition and insight are crucial. Try not to treat her too much like a child and just relax a bit, okay? Ichijo wholeheartedly agreed as Sugita patted his shoulder. But for some reason, Ichijo felt a heavy weight behind that light pat. The next day, with the investigation results just received from the Tokorozawa Fire Department headquarters in hand, Ichijo and Mika set off for Togai Brin's company. Do you think this is a bit suspicious, Mr. Ichijo? Mika was looking at the acrylic water tank that would be used in the performance, including how to escape from it. There were pumps on both sides of the tank operating along with a scorekeeping device. Rin would transform into which Ri and Togai step into the tank and close the lid. And then as the water began to rise when tethered to the tank, she would perform an amazing escape. That's what was supposed to happen, but everything didn't go so smoothly. Then the audience would start the Ri and Togai call to increase the score on the pump gauge, and when the gauge was completely filled, the pump would suck all the water out of the tank and disperse it over the audience just like when Rin escaped. Everyone would be soaked, but the fervor from the singing would dry it all up. And that was the initial idea. Quite a bold move. But how will she use this strange device? At the handshake event, she took advantage of the moment to transform into an insect, to inject venom into the victim, but... Ichijo said. Maybe she'll release ignition sparks into the water tank to disperse it over the audience. Even if the sparks could disperse like that, it's not certain whether they'd ignite the audience or not. This is quite difficult. Unable to come to a conclusion, they finally arrived at their destination. So how should we deal with this, sir? We need to be cautious, but we can't waste time either. Let's just get straight to the point. I understand, sir. Inside the uniquely designed building overlooking the street was Togai Brin's management company. The walls were plastered with posters of Rin and related merchandise like DVDs, CDs, and photo albums filled the view no matter where you stood. It was like a museum. The two had contacted the company director to inquire about the possibility of cooperation in the investigation. With the concert about to begin, they requested a face-to-face meeting, because this was a delicate time. The company director then responded that they would do anything within their power to support cooperation. The woman who stepped out to greet them was the manager, who had cared for Togai Brin since her debut, Ogawa. She was a woman who appeared mature, in her late 30s. Thinking about how many devoted fans of Togai Brin have passed away. I don't know what to say except to express my regret. Rin herself has received emails, and nothing but numerous death threats. Things like this can happen in this line of work, but I never imagined it would come to this extent. Ogawa fell silent. It seemed like she was pondering the atrocities of Rin's haters and fans. With the victims of the cornfields all being Rin's fans, there were many suspicions about whether these were murder cases or not. There have also been many nuisances, such as stalkers, which really concern us. Do you both want to see the individuals on our blacklist? Alright, there's no need for that. We're pretty confident we've identified the culprit. I see. Ogawa's demeanor changed strangely. Up until now, she had been conversing with Ichijo and looking him straight in the face, but her eyes began to droop. To be honest, it's not a culprit, but rather a potential perpetrator of murder, meaning it's beyond the reach of the law. What do you mean, sir? Mika noticed Ogawa's face stiffening for a moment. Then, she conveyed that verification to Ichijo through an exchange of glances, and he responded with a slight nod. We suspect that the homicides were caused by unidentified life forms. Unidentified life forms? Yes, and the homicides so far have just been trial runs. This has happened with unidentified life forms in the past as well. Their true goal is to commit mass murder on a much larger scale. Is that so? 32,805 people attending the concert, they are the ultimate targets. Ogawa fell silent for a moment. It seemed like she was racing through her thoughts at a frantic pace. Ichijo and Mika patiently awaited her response. Ogawa's words came as a surprise. That's not true. Huh? Because those unidentified life forms have been eradicated long ago. We suspect that some may still remain. Do you have any evidence? Any witnesses? Faced with Ogawa's sudden change in attitude, Mika instinctively stepped forward. Excuse me, Ms. Ogawa, but don't you think you're denying this too abruptly? Of course not. But this is Togai Brin's first concert in her life. And you want me to stop it just because of some vague suspicion? Some vague suspicion. That's dash. Ichijo restrained Mika, who was beginning to raise her voice, then he looked at Ogawa, calmly. We're here to see if those suspicions are true. Ogawa shot him a fierce glance, but Ichijo continued calmly, without flinching. We want to examine Togai Brin's body. For what purpose? We suspect that Togai Brin is an unidentified life form. Please don't make such ridiculous claims. Has Togai Brin ever had an X-ray or CT scan? She hasn't. Does she have any tattoos on her body? Of course not. She's an idol, after all. Please refrain from making any more bizarre accusations. There's nothing bizarre here. Mika erupted. All the victims had some form of contact with Togai Brin at some point. And among all her fans, the reason why only specific individuals were targeted is also because of Togai Brin. If we assume that Rin Togai is an unidentified life form, then everything will connect. Ogawa's face turned pale, but she pushed past her hesitation and addressed Mika sternly while glaring straight at her. Please leave. I don't have time to deal with this nonsense. As Ichijo and Mika were ushered out, the front door swung open as a young girl with a bright smile walked in, exclaiming, "Good morning, Rin." Ogawa's voice was full of panic. In contrast, Rin looked much cuter and more radiant in person than in any photos or videos of her, completely unfazed as she looked directly at Ichijo and Mika, then introduced herself properly. Hello, I'm Togai Brin. Nice to meet you. I'm Ichijo, an officer of the Central Police Department. Ogawa then rushed to protect her. Why are you here? Rin's face then naturally transitioned to one of sorrow, whispering to Ogawa while looking down in embarrassment. I heard about the incidents. It was a big shock for me, so I thought I could help, but things turned out like this. Mika had been staring at her all this while. Ichijo was calmly observing. Rin then faced them with teary eyes and lamented. I'm not an unidentified life form or anything. Of course not. Don't worry, let me handle this, okay? Ogawa tried to desperately embrace Rin, but Rin pushed her away. Then she looked at Ichijo and extended her right hand towards him. Shake my hand. My hand is warm, you know. If I were an unidentified life form, it would surely be very cold, right? She might be trying to inject the infected gland cells by shaking hands as she did with other victims. Mika looked worriedly at Ichijo. Ichijo looked deeply into Ren's eyes and confidently extended his right hand. Her eyes remained steady as she took his hand with her small hand. It felt soft and warm. It was hard to believe that this hand belonged to any ordinary young girl. "It's warm, isn't it, Mr. Investigator?" "Yes." "Do you still not believe?" Ren's face turned melancholic. In just a moment, Ichijo felt a hint of doubt creeping into his mind. The possibility of a dreadful mistake loomed large in his thoughts, an unusual apprehension running down his spine. It was an uncomfortable feeling he had never experienced before becoming an investigator. It was how the innocence of the strong-willed girl resonated with Ichijo. But Ichijo tried to push it aside and continued to address Ren. "Unfortunately, this still isn't enough to prove it." "Please, that's more than enough." Once again, Ogawa interjected, this time holding Ren back with her own hand. "What do you want me to do?" Mika replied, "Prove that you don't have any tattoos. Take off all your clothes right now." "Do you even know what you're saying?" "It's okay, Ogawa-san. I'll do it." Ren resolved to start undressing, but was stopped by Ogawa's plea, "Please stop, Ren." Then she glared at Mika. "There's no search warrant, this is just a random investigation, isn't it? I can sue you for violating human rights. Don't you understand that 32,805 concert attendees could possibly be murdered? It's impossible. Ren isn't like that, she couldn't do such a thing. Please, just leave." Forced to leave the company, Ichijo and Mika had to abandon the investigation and return to the investigation headquarters. "It's unbelievable. We should have taken her to the hospital and gotten a CT scan." "Calm down, Natsum. After seeing the manager's behavior, I'm almost certain that she really is an unidentified life form. But if we had continued questioning then, we might have lost the opportunity." "What makes you say that?" "Togai Brin volunteered for a body search. Even though we forced her to do it, she was confident and didn't back down. Perhaps the tattoo was removed somewhere, and there might be complications with getting a CT scan or anything else. If she had resolved all suspicions at that time, further pursuit would have become even more difficult." Sugita entered with a disgruntled expression. "My superiors just chewed me out, telling me to ease up on everything. Damn it, it seems like they've received some complaints." "Is that really important?" As usual, Mika appeared stubborn. "But they requested that SP ensure security for the stadium. In other words, they're telling us to stay away. Continuing the investigation is becoming increasingly difficult. It's come to this." Mika lifted her head determinedly. "I'm joining the maid team." "What?" Ichijo was also quite surprised. "What's going on, Natsum?" "The maid team. They're backup dancers for Rin. If I can infiltrate there, I'll get closer to her." "And then what are you planning to do?" "At the management company, I saw an ID card on the table and secretly took a photo of it. It's a simple thing worn around the neck, so if I just make one that looks similar, getting in won't be difficult." "Well, maybe the SP will mistake you for one of the other 17 or 18 maids, but..." Suddenly, a voice saying, "Good evening," echoed in the room as a woman wearing glasses entered, her bright eyes shining with intellect. Her long hair was neatly tied back, and she wore a very simple outfit with long pants. It was clear that she didn't care much about fashion. She was the scientist Inokita Hikari. "Oh, there you are, Inokita. Your voice on the phone hasn't changed at all, but you don't look any different." Inokita responded to Sugita with a "cut it out" and went straight to Ichijo. "It's been a while, Ichijo." "Yes, indeed. You look even more determined. Still training, aren't you?" As Inokata began punching Ichijo's chest, Mika walked in and interrupted. Yes, I'm Ichijo's subordinate, Natsum. Nice to meet you, ma'am. Oh, you have such an adorable subordinate. I'm Inokata, nice to meet you. Wait a minute, Natsum, she's my subordinate, right? Ignoring Sugita's response, Mika asked Inokata. Is it true that you're researching the development of equipment to combat the new unidentified life forms? Yes, I want to deploy it as soon as possible, so I flew here. Look at this. She opened her briefcase to reveal nerve-destroying bullets for the new model. They're based on tank-penetrating rounds. But you probably don't understand. Basically, inside the bullet are a series of tiny needles to increase penetration. Then, the tiny needles enter the body and spread out, activating the nanodevices and exploding. They're 25 times more effective than the bullets used here. Still as amazing as ever, Inokata. Ichijo quickly remarked. By the way, it was actually my son who suggested it, after transitioning from a train fanatic to an anime fanatic, and then to a military fanatic. Sayuru, the brat? Yeah, now he's in college. Well, I think letting him grow up on his own terms will help him in the future. On his own terms? Ichijo smiled awkwardly without thinking. He knew she was being modest, but he still found it amusing when she said such things, so much like her. Jean also helped a lot. Mika was very surprised to hear that name. Jean. Jean Michelle Sorrel? Huh? Oh yeah. You're Professor Natsum's daughter, right? Yes. Jean and the excavation team back then helped me a lot. But how are you and him related? Oh, just friends. He's a very good person, but he's gone back to his country. Then Sugita put his hand on her shoulder. It seems like you've been through a lot too. But Inokata pushed his hand away and said, doing that is like sexual harassment. Her expression then became more serious as she continued. What's more important is that there are still many things to report to everyone. She was referring to the analyses that Sugita had relied on. First, they discovered that an extremely small creature resembled a part of the oxygen pump. Naturally, Ichijo and everyone else were very surprised. If they assumed Nakata was an unidentified life form, then he might have implanted a part of his body into the pump, causing it to malfunction, and then replaced it with the original part. Next, regarding the poison of the jellyfish, upon closer examination, some interesting details were clarified. Typically, the jellyfish is toxin or allergen with a very stable molecular structure. But for some reason, the extracted toxin appeared unstable and easily mixed with other substances. When the allergens penetrate the human body, immune chains will activate and link with invading viruses. However, the extracted allergens will cause immune globin chains to link with them, turning them into another substance, causing an excessive reaction of the immune system in the body. Furthermore, when bound to faint traces of sulfuric alum in tap water, a deadly toxin, called sesidohilbin, will be formed. Sesidohilbin has the ability to cause shock even when absorbed through the skin, with a death rate of nearly 100%. In other words, simply coming into contact with a solution containing that toxin can cause death. So she's planning to kill the entire audience with the climax event in that water tank. Mika immediately replied. As fans begin to cheer for Ri and Togaib, the countdown to their death will begin. There's no other choice at this point. Everyone in that room was passionately eager to advance to that stage and destroy the water tank. But they understood that they wouldn't have a chance unless they caught Togaib first. After being asked by Sugita to find evidence to charge Togaib as an unidentified life form, Ichijo and Mika once again set out to investigate. There are 37 hours left until Togai Brin's concert. The concert staff will start rehearsing at 5 a.m. on the day. The 3-hour period from the end of the rehearsal to the start of the concert will be their only chance to resolve everything satisfactorily. Just before parting ways after leaving the police station, Mika quietly spoke to Ichijo without looking at him. If we hit a dead end, Godai will come to help us. I'm sure of that. Ichijo replied without looking at Mika. Even so, we still have to persist. We need to restrain ourselves, for the sake of police responsibility, that's our top priority. Mika parted ways with Ichijo in silence, and Ichijo didn't look back either. Mika focused on leads related to Rin, asking if anyone knew about her tattoo. She started with makeup artists and hairstylists, interrogating every staff member she could find. Unfortunately, they all denied knowing anything, and Mika found herself going in the wrong direction with the investigation. She then decided to go to the high school Rin attended. There were many famous stories about her causing trouble back then. Usually, these details would be found as rumors through weekly magazine articles, but Rin had actually fully admitted the truth from the start. She said that was her true self, and she decided to live brightly from then on to not trouble her mother anymore. Thus, her current radiant smile symbolized the brightness that had returned to her. She began by winning the favor of those who disliked her, and now she was successful enough to organize a large-scale concert with over 30,000 people with tickets sold out immediately. At the school, many male students claimed Rin often skipped classes with her classmates. She doesn't have a tattoo. It's impossible. Yes, it's true she hangs out with a rough crowd, but she'd never get a tattoo. Why is that? She always talked about it. Tattoos are something she can't have. Her mother would be very upset if she got one. I understand. Not long after that, Rin stopped coming here altogether. She became very close with her mother. Whenever we happened to see her on the street, she always pretended not to know us. It was really surprising. On the other hand, Ichijo contacted Tsubaki and asked for details about the tattoos of the unidentified life forms. Tsubaki reported that medically, they weren't tattoos. They were a collection of highly concentrated skin pigments, resembling moles or birthmarks. They can be removed with skin grafts, but they'll grow back quickly. As the documents say, the tattoos might indeed resemble the monster's forms. Ichijo then began talking to homeless people who knew about the underworld and gathered information. He found out that Rin's parent company had connections to the black market, along with an interesting rumor. Apparently, a freelance cameraman had been killed and covered up by staging it as suicide. This man had been following Rin in hopes of finding a scandal to blackmail her management company. He happened to capture a photo of a tattoo between her buttocks and thighs. He then used this information to blackmail the management company and demanded compensation to keep it secret. The homeless man told Ichijo that he could obtain this photo for 20 million yen. However, he owed Ichijo. The thing is, Ichijo had previously dealt with a corruption bribery case that he was involved in. But there were people after his life in the underworld, and he was sure Ichijo had acted to save him. He promised to pay back his debt to him someday. Ichijo asked if today could be the day to repay the debt, and through that, Ichijo finally obtained evidence that Togai Brin had a jellyfish mark on her body. There was no more doubt, Togai Brin was a Gurongi. Despite that, Ichijo still warned Mika. However, the government won't consider this as persuasive evidence that Togai Brin is a Gurongi. It's just our belief confirmation. So you mean it's just a direction for us? Yes. Unless Togai Brin reveals her true form, we won't be able to shoot her. That's the absolute law that the police must adhere to. I understand. As Mika responded, it was already 4 a.m. on the day of the concert. After collaborating with the security forces in Takarazawa responsible for the concert area backstage, the plan was to not allow concert attendees to enter until the very last second. As Mika had declared earlier, she had meticulously arranged a plan to sneak into the concert and disguise herself as a maid. Pretending to have forgotten something in the parking lot, she would find a way to circle around to the entrance. Until the concert started, Mika had to focus on getting as close to Rin as possible, hoping to catch her in the process of transforming. She had to keep Ichijo and Sugita, who would be on standby, updated on every detail through wireless radio. After preparing, Mika's appearance after changing into the maid outfit was perfect. The mic was hidden behind her earpiece, and the earpiece transmitter was concealed behind her ear. Unless someone knew beforehand, no one could tell. Togai-brin might reveal her identity to kill me. If anything happens, please don't hesitate to rush in. Mika made it clear. Despite it being summer, Ichijo's mind still recalled that snowstorm scene. The smiling face of the young man had told him to shoot himself if anything happened. Behind Mika, Ichijo could see that young man standing beside her. But Ichijo didn't have time for sentimentality now. He arranged plainclothes officers in various areas to prepare for any potential incidents. At 6:02:53 a.m., Mika successfully infiltrated the concert stage. Ichijo heard a mix of sounds coming through his earpiece. A man was giving orders. A good morning came from a girl. Lastly, the voices of worried fans were getting closer to the stage. Some particularly anxious fans had been waiting outside the concert since the previous night to prepare for selling merchandise before the performance. A report from Takarazawa security stated that if necessary, they might have to open the concert early. But Mika still hadn't found Rin. During the pre-campaign investigation, they had information that just before the concert started, Rin would request to be left alone to focus. It wasn't clear if it was related to the unidentified life forms or not. Rin's dressing room was on the third floor of the stadium, in the director's room. The path there wasn't surprising with many staff members, indicating that entering would be difficult. Around 6:27 a.m., Mika noticed a change in the situation. She contacted Ichijo with a soft "Mr. Ichijo. What's wrong? There's chaos among the staff. It seems they can't find manager Ogawa anywhere. Isn't she supposed to be with Togai-brin? It doesn't seem like it. The situation is quite unusual now. The staff are really worried. What's happening? Ichijo wondered as an uncomfortable feeling passed through his mind. But the temporary confusion of the staff had created an opportunity for Mika to sneak in. Mr. Ichijo, the staff aren't looking in this direction anymore. I'm going in. Have you prepared your gun? Yes, I'm ready. Ichijo heard Mika knock on the director's room door. He didn't hear Rin respond, but he heard Mika's "Excuse me, do you have a moment?" Ichijo looked straight into Sugita's eyes standing next to him, and they both looked worried. Oh, you're a member of the maid team. What's the matter? Togai-brin's cheerful tone suddenly changed. Oh, you're the inspector from the other day, right? Why are you dressed as a maid? Don't tell me you've become a fan of mine. Of course not. Then you're intruding. Even if you're a police officer. Everyone is tense, because Miss Ogawa isn't here, but you seem normal. Ogawa? Of course, she's not here. What do you mean? That woman has been bothering me since that day. Just spouting nonsense like the concert must be successful, right? Or you won't do anything strange, will you? Ogawa must have felt that you're planning something. But she said she trusts me. She said we're really close and would do anything for each other. How gullible can she be? I've endured this for 2 years just for today. Where's Miss Ogawa? Mika pressed on. But Rin responded with an annoyed tone. Who knows? Maybe she wants to disappear somewhere far away? After all, being a manager is really tough. Don't joke with me. Who's joking with you? Quickly tell me where Ogawa is right now. Hey, I really cherish Miss Ogawa. The company director does too. They let me into the company without caring what kind of person I am. Or is it an unidentified life form? The tension in Ichijo and Sugita escalated, but Mika and Rin's conversation continued without interruption. You're asking straight out, huh? There's no time left. Hee, that's interesting. I like you, so I'll tell you something small. Your deduction is very accurate. Ichijo looked at Sugita impatiently, but Sugita raised his hand to signal to wait a little longer. So you're really a Gurongi? Unfortunately, the conversation must end now. After all, we have no authority to suspend this concert. I won't reveal myself. Are you revealing your identity to me now? It doesn't matter, because you'll end up where Ogawa went. Upon hearing those words, even Ichijo and Sugita knew that Mika was in danger. So that means... Hee. What can you say? Stop. If you come any closer, I'll shoot. Can you? I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that. As soon as the sentence ended, a sound like a click was heard. Huh. Muffled groans escaped Mika's throat as Rin materialized into her squid-like form and grabbed Mika's throat after knocking away her gun. Sugita held back the SP team at the gate and chased away the staff, while Ichijo ran. He felt increasingly uncomfortable. As he ran, Ichijo shouted to the people around him to flee. No one knew what would happen if chaos broke out. Meanwhile, Ichijo heard Rin's cold voice, coming through the earpiece. I'll tell you the secret of Rin Togaib call. Rin Togaib. Rento Jibe. Lento Jibe. It means Lento will all die soon, hee. Ichijo ran. He knew he would ultimately have to confront the heavily armed SP team, but he had to get through. In his ear was Mika's voice. Ichijo. I'm sorry. Perhaps she was apologizing for losing her life without achieving her goal? You fool. Don't give up now, Natsum. At that moment, a loud noise rang out as the stands of Cebu Dome began to collapse. For some reason, the upper area of the director's room had collapsed. Pushing against fleeing staff, Ichijo ran in. In the dark corridor, thick clouds of dust began to gather. After rushing through it, he reached an area with light shining in. Suddenly, a piece of rubble hit Ichijo's head and he fell to the floor, but Ichijo regained his strength and stood up. At that moment, he saw two figures in the dust cloud. Standing on one side was an unidentified life form in the shape of a jellyfish. And on the other side was a white Kuuga. Godai. Suddenly, everything in front of Ichijo darkened, and he collapsed completely on the spot.